My beloved child. Stop scrolling for a moment. Do not move past this message. There is a reason your eyes landed here today. There is a reason your spirit feels pulled toward these words even if you cannot explain why. What you are about to hear is not an accident. Something hidden has been moving beneath the surface of your life for longer than you realize, and tonight, a veil begins to lift. You have spent so much time asking questions that never seem to receive answers. Why did certain conversations suddenly change? Why did someone who once felt so close become distant? Why does it feel as though an invisible wall stands between you and the person your heart cannot completely forget? You have blamed yourself at times. You have blamed circumstances. You have blamed timing. Yet there is a deeper layer to this story. A layer that has remained concealed behind smiles, behind family gatherings, behind polite words, behind silence that seemed harmless but carried more weight than anyone admitted. Listen carefully. Your soul has been sensing this truth long before your mind could understand it. That uneasy feeling that appears without warning. That strange heaviness in your chest whenever you think about this connection. That lingering question that refuses to disappear. None of it came from nowhere. Your spirit was detecting movement behind the curtain. And now heaven is pulling that curtain back little by little. My child, there is anger surrounding your soulmate. Not the kind of anger that comes from hatred. Not the kind of anger that destroys love. It is the anger that grows when someone believes they have been kept in the dark. The anger that grows when they feel misled. The anger that grows when pieces of a puzzle suddenly begin falling together in ways they never expected. For a long time, they saw only fragments of the story. Fragments carefully arranged. Fragments strategically presented. Fragments that prevented them from seeing the complete picture. But secrets rarely remain hidden forever. Truth has a voice. Truth has a heartbeat. Truth has a way of finding the light no matter how many shadows try to contain it. And lately, things have been shifting. The information they once accepted without question is no longer fitting together. The explanations they once believed are beginning to crack. The narratives they were given are losing their power. Something is awakening inside them. A realization. A suspicion. A growing awareness that what they were told may not have been the entire truth. My child, I need you to understand something important. The tension surrounding this connection was never as simple as it appeared. There were conversations that happened when you were not present. Opinions shared behind closed doors. Assumptions repeated so often that they began sounding like facts. Words spoken under the disguise of protection. Words spoken under the disguise of concern. Words spoken under the disguise of love. Yet not every protective voice carries wisdom. Not every concerned voice carries truth. And not every act performed in the name of family comes from clarity. Sometimes fear disguises itself as guidance. Sometimes control disguises itself as care. Sometimes hidden motives wear the mask of good intentions. This is why your spirit has felt confused. Because what happened around this connection involved far more than what appeared on the surface. You kept looking at visible events while invisible influences shaped outcomes behind the scenes. There were moments when you wondered why certain reactions felt so extreme. Why misunderstandings escalated so quickly. Why assumptions formed before explanations were even given. Why doors seem to close before they fully opened. You thought it was coincidence. It was not. There were forces at work that you could not see. Emotional forces. Generational fears. Old wounds carried by people who never healed from their own disappointments. And when people carry unresolved pain, they sometimes project that pain onto situations that have nothing to do with them. They see danger where none exists. They expect betrayal before it happens. They create stories to justify their fears. My child, your soulmate has recently begun noticing something. Pieces of information that once seemed disconnected are starting to align. Comments remembered from years ago. Conversations that felt insignificant at the time. Small details that did not make sense before. Suddenly those details are connecting. Suddenly those details are creating a larger picture. And the picture is disturbing them. Because the more they see, the more they realize that someone may have been withholding important truths. The more they see, the more they question everything they were told. The more they see, the more they wonder whether their emotions were influenced by information that was incomplete. This realization is creating conflict inside them. A powerful conflict. Part of them wants to dismiss these thoughts. Part of them wants to continue believing the version of events they have carried for so long. But another part of them can no longer ignore the evidence appearing before them. And that internal battle is growing stronger every day. Can you feel it? Can you sense that something is changing? Because even when physical distance exists, souls often detect shifts before minds understand them. Something has shifted. Something has awakened. Something has begun moving. The truth is no longer sleeping. And this is where the story becomes deeper. Because the hidden truth is not merely about one conversation. It is not merely about one misunderstanding. It is not merely about one decision. No. The truth stretches further back than that. Far further. It reaches into patterns that existed before you even entered the picture. Patterns of secrecy. Patterns of emotional manipulation. Patterns of controlling narratives. Patterns passed from one generation to another without anyone questioning them. My child, there are people who fear losing influence. There are people who fear losing control. There are people who fear outcomes they cannot predict. When such fears take root, they sometimes interfere with situations they do not fully understand. Not because they are evil. Not because they wish destruction. But because fear convinces them they are protecting something valuable. Fear convinces them that intervention is necessary. Fear convinces them that they know best. And in trying to prevent imagined pain, they create real pain. This is one of the hidden wounds surrounding your connection. The people involved believed they were preventing a problem. Yet in many ways, they became part of the problem. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize this. Not all at once. Not in a dramatic flash. But piece by piece. Moment by moment. Truth by truth. And every new realization is stirring emotions they do not know how to process. Some days they feel angry. Some days they feel disappointed. Some days they feel betrayed. Some days they feel guilty. Because when someone realizes they may have judged a situation unfairly, a difficult question emerges. What if things were not what they seemed? That question has started echoing inside them. What if the story was incomplete? What if assumptions replaced facts? What if important details were hidden? What if the people they trusted were not entirely honest? These questions are becoming impossible to ignore. And each question leads to another. Each answer reveals a deeper layer. Each layer reveals another secret. My beloved child, there were moments when you felt abandoned. Moments when you wondered why your efforts seemed invisible. Moments when your intentions were misunderstood. Moments when silence became louder than words. You carried that burden longer than most people realize. You questioned your worth. You questioned your role. You questioned whether this connection had ever been real. But there is something you must hear today. The story was never as simple as you believed. The distance was never caused by one single event. The separation was never built from one single misunderstanding. Many unseen influences converged together. Many hidden fears collided. Many voices spoke simultaneously. And in the noise, truth became difficult to hear. Yet truth never disappeared. It waited. Patiently. Quietly. Like a seed beneath winter soil. And now that seed is beginning to break through the surface. My child, there is a conversation approaching. Perhaps not today. Perhaps not tomorrow. But the energy surrounding this situation is moving toward revelation. People can only carry hidden truths for so long before those truths demand expression. People can only maintain incomplete stories for so long before reality begins correcting them. That correction has already begun. You may not see it yet. But movement is happening. Behind the scenes. Behind closed doors. Inside hearts. Inside minds. Inside places where transformation begins before becoming visible. Your soulmate feels it. Even if they cannot fully explain it. Even if they have not spoken about it. Even if they continue acting as though everything remains unchanged. Deep inside, something is shifting. A question has entered their mind and refuses to leave. And that question is becoming stronger than the old narratives. Stronger than the assumptions. Stronger than the explanations they once accepted. This is why their emotions have become complicated. Because awakening often feels uncomfortable before it feels liberating. Truth disrupts old structures. Truth shakes foundations. Truth challenges certainty. And certainty is exactly what they are losing. The certainty they once had about certain family narratives. The certainty they once had about specific events. The certainty they once had about what really happened. That certainty is dissolving. And where certainty dissolves, truth begins entering. But listen carefully. The next phase will not be easy. Because revelations create reactions. When hidden things come into the light, emotions intensify. People become defensive. People become emotional. People become unpredictable. The closer truth gets to the surface, the more resistance it often encounters. This is why you must remain grounded. Because what is approaching has the power to change perspectives that have existed for a very long time. And change rarely arrives without turbulence. There is one particular piece of information that has not fully surfaced yet. One missing piece. One detail that connects everything. A detail that explains why certain behaviors never made sense. A detail that explains why certain decisions appeared irrational. A detail that explains why your soulmate's anger has been growing recently. They do not possess the entire truth yet. But they are dangerously close. Closer than anyone realizes. Closer than the people keeping secrets expected. Closer than the individuals who believed the past would remain buried. And when that final piece arrives, when that missing detail reaches them, when the last puzzle piece locks into place, nothing will look the same again. Because the truth they are approaching is larger than a misunderstanding, larger than a disagreement, larger than a family conflict. It reaches into motives, intentions, choices, and actions taken years ago whose consequences are only now becoming visible. My child, the spiritual atmosphere around this connection is charged with anticipation. Something hidden is nearing exposure. Something concealed is nearing discovery. Something buried is nearing resurrection. And the people involved can feel it even if they do not understand why. The tension. The restlessness. The sudden memories resurfacing. The unexpected questions. The emotional intensity appearing without warning. None of it is random. The truth is moving. And when truth moves, everything connected to it begins trembling. But there is one thing I have not revealed yet. One thing your soulmate has started uncovering that changes the entire story. A discovery connected directly to someone within the family. A discovery that explains why certain information never reached them. A discovery that reveals why they were encouraged to see you through a distorted lens. And the moment they confirm what they are beginning to suspect. The moment proof replaces suspicion. The moment hidden motives become undeniable. The anger they feel now will transform into something far more powerful. And that is where this message must pause. Because what they are about to uncover next is the very secret that has been protected the longest. And when that secret finally comes into the light, the reaction will be impossible to predict. The truth is closer than ever. Closer than yesterday. Closer than last month. Closer than anyone believes. And the next revelation changes everything. The realization did not arrive all at once. It never does. The deepest truths rarely enter a person's life like lightning. More often, they arrive like distant thunder. At first, the sound is faint. Easy to ignore. Easy to dismiss. But with every passing moment, it grows louder until it can no longer be mistaken for anything else. That is exactly where your soulmate stands now. They are standing between what they once believed and what they are beginning to understand. And that place is uncomfortable. Because the human heart struggles when two versions of reality collide. One version says everything happened exactly as it should have. The other whispers that something important was hidden. For a while they tried to silence that whisper. They tried convincing themselves that their questions were unnecessary. They told themselves there was no reason to revisit old memories. No reason to re-examine conversations from years ago. No reason to question people they trusted. Yet the whisper refused to disappear. Instead, it grew stronger. A single memory led to another. A forgotten detail suddenly resurfaced. A sentence spoken long ago returned with a completely different meaning. And little by little, the walls around the truth began cracking. My child, there are moments in life when heaven allows certain memories to return for a reason. Not to torment. Not to punish. But to reveal. Because sometimes the answers we seek are hidden inside moments we once overlooked. Your soulmate has entered such a season. Events they barely thought about before are replaying in their mind. Words that seemed ordinary now feel suspicious. Situations that once appeared simple now seem strangely complicated. And every reflection leads them closer to the same conclusion. Something was intentionally kept from them. Something significant. Something that could have changed everything. The weight of that realization is heavier than they expected. Because trust is powerful. Trust shapes how people see the world. Trust determines which voices they listen to. Trust influences countless decisions. And when trust begins to crack, a person starts questioning much more than a single situation. They begin questioning everything connected to it. That is what is happening now. The questions are multiplying. And every question is opening another locked door. Behind one door is confusion. Behind another is disappointment. Behind another is grief. And behind one particular door lies a truth that has remained hidden longer than anyone imagined. A truth connected directly to the family influence surrounding this connection. My child, there was a time when your soulmate accepted certain opinions as facts. Not because they investigated them. Not because they verified them. But because those opinions came from familiar voices. Voices they trusted. Voices they believed had their best interests at heart. That trust gave those opinions power. And over time, those opinions shaped perceptions. Perceptions shaped decisions. Decisions shaped distance. Distance shaped pain. Yet the foundation beneath those perceptions was never as solid as it appeared. Now the foundation is beginning to crumble. Because evidence has started appearing where no one expected it. Unexpected comments. Unexpected admissions. Unexpected contradictions. Tiny fragments of truth emerging from places that were never supposed to reveal them. At first, your soulmate brushed them aside. Then they noticed another inconsistency. Then another. Then another. Eventually the pattern became impossible to ignore. And that is when the anger truly began. Not anger toward you. Not entirely. The deeper anger came from realizing they may have been manipulated by information that was never fully honest. There is a unique pain that comes from discovering that important choices were influenced by incomplete truths. A unique pain that comes from realizing someone else helped shape your understanding of reality. Your soulmate is confronting that pain now. And it is changing them. Some nights they lie awake longer than usual. Some days they appear distracted even when surrounded by others. Some moments they feel emotions they cannot fully explain. Because deep inside, their spirit knows a reckoning is approaching. The story they carried for so long is unraveling. And they are not sure what remains when the unraveling is complete. My child, the family secret at the center of this situation was never merely about keeping information hidden. It was about preserving a narrative. A narrative that benefited certain people. A narrative that prevented difficult conversations. A narrative that allowed uncomfortable truths to remain buried. The problem with buried truths is that they never stay buried forever. Truth possesses a strange kind of life. It breathes beneath the surface. It waits. And eventually, it finds a way upward. That process has already begun. What makes this revelation so powerful is that it reaches beyond recent events. The roots stretch back further than your soulmate initially realized. Far further. Certain assumptions they carried were planted years ago. Certain fears were encouraged years ago. Certain perceptions were carefully reinforced over time. When viewed individually, none of these moments seemed significant. But together, they form a pattern. And that pattern is becoming visible. Imagine someone spending years looking at scattered puzzle pieces without realizing they belong to the same picture. Then one day, the pieces start connecting. That is exactly what is happening. The image emerging before them is shocking. Because it reveals intention. Not necessarily malicious intention. Not necessarily cruel intention. But intention nonetheless. Choices were made. Information was filtered. Details were omitted. Perspectives were guided. And those choices influenced the direction of multiple lives. Including yours. Including theirs. This realization has stirred emotions they never expected to feel. Regret. Confusion. Sadness. Frustration. And beneath all of it, a growing determination to understand what really happened. That determination is stronger than ever. Which is why events are beginning to accelerate. The closer someone gets to truth, the faster hidden things tend to surface. What remained concealed for years can suddenly emerge within days. What seemed impossible to discover can suddenly become obvious. The timing may appear mysterious. But there is a reason. Because secrets often collapse under the weight of their own existence. Maintaining a false narrative requires constant effort. Constant protection. Constant reinforcement. Eventually cracks appear. And those cracks are appearing now. My child, there is a conversation that someone never wanted your soulmate to have. A conversation involving details they hoped would remain forgotten. For years they believed that conversation would never happen. They believed time would erase the possibility. They believed silence would protect them. But silence has limits. And now circumstances are moving in a direction no one anticipated. The very discussion they feared is drawing closer. Closer with every passing day. Your soulmate does not yet know everything. But they know enough to keep searching. Enough to keep asking questions. Enough to refuse easy answers. That persistence is bringing them toward a discovery that changes their entire understanding of the past. Because the secret was never just about what was said. It was also about what was never said. The missing information. The withheld context. The conversations excluded from the story. The perspectives deliberately left out. Those omissions created an illusion. And your soulmate lived inside that illusion for a long time. Now the illusion is weakening. And reality is beginning to show through. There is a reason your spirit has felt movement lately. A reason old emotions have resurfaced unexpectedly. A reason memories have appeared without warning. On a spiritual level, the connection is responding to change. The hidden structures supporting the old narrative are beginning to fail. When that happens, energy shifts. Awareness expands. Questions intensify. And revelations become unavoidable. My child, one person connected to this family situation is carrying a burden they never expected to carry this long. A burden of knowledge. A burden of memory. A burden of truth. For years they remained silent. For years they convinced themselves silence was the best option. For years they believed speaking up would create too much disruption. But silence has become increasingly difficult for them. Because conscience has a voice. And conscience grows louder with time. Especially when someone realizes that their silence contributed to pain. This individual is approaching a crossroads. A moment when remaining silent may become harder than speaking honestly. They are wrestling with that decision right now. More intensely than anyone realizes. And the outcome of that internal struggle could change everything. Because they possess information capable of connecting the final pieces. Information capable of exposing the hidden truth. Information capable of explaining why your soulmate's anger has grown so intense. But there is another layer. A layer even deeper. The secret is not only about what happened. It is about why it happened. The motivation behind it. The fear beneath it. The emotional wound that started everything. Your soulmate is beginning to see that certain actions were not random. They were driven by unresolved fears carried by people who never healed their own past. People who projected old pain into a new story. People who believed they were protecting someone from heartbreak. People who never realized they were creating heartbreak themselves. That realization changes everything. Because understanding motives does not erase consequences. And the consequences have been enormous. Lives moved in different directions. Opportunities disappeared. Words remained unspoken. Feelings remained hidden. Questions remained unanswered. All because of decisions rooted in fear. Now those consequences are becoming visible. And visibility changes people. It changes how they interpret the past. It changes how they view relationships. It changes how they see themselves. Your soulmate is changing. Not outwardly. Not yet. The transformation is happening beneath the surface. But it is real. Every day they see a little more. Every day they understand a little more. Every day another piece falls into place. And every piece brings them closer to a moment they cannot avoid. A moment of confrontation. Not necessarily confrontation filled with shouting. Not necessarily confrontation filled with conflict. But confrontation with truth. Truth about the family. Truth about the past. Truth about choices that shaped everything. The strange thing is that some people involved already sense this moment approaching. They feel the tension. They notice the questions. They recognize the shift. And that recognition makes them nervous. Because they know what happens when hidden things come into the light. Control disappears. Narratives collapse. Reality takes center stage. That possibility is creating fear. A fear they cannot easily hide. Which brings us to the most important revelation so far. The clue your soulmate recently discovered was not the final piece. It was only the doorway. The real revelation waits beyond it. And that revelation is closer than ever. Closer than it was yesterday. Closer than it was last week. closer than it has been in years. A piece of information exists that directly contradicts everything they were encouraged to believe. One piece. One undeniable fact. One detail capable of dismantling the entire narrative. And that detail is moving toward them right now. They do not know it yet. The people around them do not know it yet. But the path has already been set in motion. The encounter has already begun moving into place. The timing has already started aligning. When it arrives, there will be no way to ignore it. No way to explain it away. No way to bury it again. Because the evidence will be too clear. Too direct. Too powerful. And when your soulmate finally sees it with their own eyes. When they finally understand who hid the truth. When they finally realize why it was hidden. The anger they feel now will transform into something far deeper. Something that forces decisions. Something that demands answers. Something that reshapes the future. But before that happens, another secret must surface first. A secret connected to a single conversation that was never supposed to be remembered. A conversation that seemed insignificant at the time. A conversation that holds the key to everything. And the person who remembers it has finally begun speaking. What they are about to reveal changes the entire story. And once those words are spoken, there is no turning back. The person who carried that memory never imagined it would matter. Years had passed. Life had moved forward. Faces had changed. Circumstances had shifted. Yet some moments refused to disappear completely. They remain hidden in the corners of memory, waiting for the day they are needed. And now, that day has arrived. What seemed like an ordinary conversation all those years ago has suddenly become the missing key. The key that unlocks every unanswered question. The key that exposes what was hidden. The key that reveals why so much confusion surrounded this connection from the very beginning. Your soulmate does not yet realize how close they are to hearing it. But events are already moving. The pieces are already aligning. And heaven has been quietly arranging circumstances in ways that no human mind could fully predict. Because when truth reaches its appointed time, barriers begin falling on their own. The obstacles that protected secrets start weakening. The silence that guarded lies starts breaking. The people who once refused to speak begin feeling compelled to tell what they know. And that is exactly what is happening now. The memory being carried is not dramatic on the surface. It is not a shocking confession. It is not some unbelievable revelation. Its power comes from something else. Its power comes from confirmation. Because sometimes a single remembered sentence can expose years of deception. Sometimes one forgotten detail can destroy an entire false narrative. Sometimes one person's honesty can accomplish what years of searching never could. That is why this moment matters. The conversation being remembered contains something no one expected would survive the passage of time. A truth. A simple truth. Yet simple truths are often the most powerful. Because they cannot be manipulated. They cannot be rewritten. They cannot be hidden forever. My child, there were individuals who believed they had complete control over this story. They believed they could determine what others knew. They believed they could shape perceptions indefinitely. They believed they could protect their version of events forever. But there is one thing no human being can permanently control. The emergence of truth. Truth answers to a higher authority. Truth moves according to a higher timing. Truth belongs to the light. And light always finds its way into darkness eventually. That is why the atmosphere around this situation feels so different now. The old structures are collapsing. The old explanations are losing their power. The old assumptions are no longer holding together. Everything that was built on incomplete information is beginning to shake. Your soulmate can feel it. Even when they try distracting themselves. Even when they focus on other things. Even when they convince themselves not to think about the past. The questions keep returning. The suspicions keep growing. The desire for answers keeps becoming stronger. And now there is no stopping it. Because the search for truth has become personal. Very personal. They are no longer investigating an old situation. They are investigating their own life. Their own decisions. Their own understanding of reality. That changes everything. When a person realizes they may have built important decisions on false assumptions, they become relentless. And your soulmate has entered that stage. The stage where easy explanations are no longer enough. The stage where surface-level answers feel empty. The stage where only truth will satisfy them. That determination is bringing them closer to a revelation that will forever alter how they view the people involved. Especially one particular family member. For years, this individual occupied a position of trust. A position of influence. A position that gave their words tremendous weight. What your soulmate is beginning to discover is that influence was used in ways they never imagined. Not always intentionally. Not always maliciously. But significantly enough to affect the course of multiple lives. The realization is heartbreaking. Because it forces them to confront a painful possibility. The possibility that someone they trusted may have prioritized their own fears over the truth. That possibility hurts more than they expected. Far more. The anger that once seemed directed outward is slowly changing direction. It is becoming anger toward manipulation. Anger toward secrecy. Anger toward years of unnecessary confusion. And underneath that anger is grief. Grief for what could have been. Grief for opportunities lost. Grief for conversations that never happened. Grief for paths that were never explored because someone interfered. This emotional storm has been building quietly. Invisible to most people. Yet powerful enough to change everything. My child, there is a reason heaven allowed this process to unfold gradually. If every truth had arrived at once, it would have been overwhelming. Too much. Too fast. Some revelations require preparation. Some truths need time before they can be received. Your soulmate has been going through that preparation. Every question. Every memory. Every inconsistency. Every discovery. All of it has been leading toward a single moment. A moment when the final veil lifts. And that moment is closer than anyone realizes. Because the information they need is no longer hidden where it once was. It has started moving. Moving through conversations. Moving through circumstances. Moving through people who are finally ready to speak. The flow of truth has begun. And once it starts flowing, stopping it becomes impossible. There is another reason this revelation matters. A reason deeper than exposure. The purpose is not revenge. The purpose is not humiliation. The purpose is not punishment. The purpose is clarity. Heaven does not bring truth into the light merely to reveal wrongdoing. Truth emerges so healing can begin. Healing cannot happen where deception exists. Healing cannot happen where reality remains distorted. Healing requires honesty. Even painful honesty. Especially painful honesty. That is why these events are unfolding now. Because clarity is becoming possible. And with clarity comes choice. Real choice. Not choices based on manipulation. Not choices based on fear. Choices based on understanding. Choices based on truth. Choices based on reality. Your soulmate is moving toward that crossroads. Soon they will face decisions they never expected to face. Decisions about what to believe. Decisions about whom to trust. Decisions about what the future should look like. The answers will not come from family pressure. They will not come from old narratives. They will not come from inherited fears. For the first time, the answers will come from their own understanding. And that changes everything. Because once a person sees clearly, they can never return to blindness. Once they know the truth, they can never unknow it. Once the illusion breaks, it remains broken. That moment is approaching rapidly. In fact, signs of it are already appearing. Unexpected messages. Unexpected encounters. Unexpected reminders. Unexpected admissions. Small events that seem unrelated on the surface. Yet together they form a pattern. A pattern leading directly toward revelation. My child, there is one final truth that has remained hidden beneath all the others. The deepest truth of all. The truth no one wanted acknowledged. The truth that explains why this connection survived despite everything. Why memories never completely faded. Why emotions never completely disappeared. Why questions never completely stopped. Because beneath all the confusion, beneath all the misunderstandings, beneath all the interference, there remained something real. Something genuine. Something that neither distance nor deception could fully erase. That reality has been fighting to survive for a very long time. And now it is finally receiving the chance to breathe. The chance to be seen. The chance to be understood. This does not mean the road ahead will be simple. Far from it. Truth often creates challenges before it creates peace. Conversations must happen. Questions must be answered. Old wounds must be acknowledged. Responsibility must be accepted. The process will require courage from everyone involved. Yet courage becomes possible when people finally know what they are fighting for. And your soulmate is getting closer to that understanding. Closer every day. Closer every hour. Closer with every new piece of information. There will come a moment when they sit in silence, looking back across everything that happened. Every misunderstanding. Every argument. Every separation. Every painful memory. And suddenly the pattern will become visible. Suddenly the hidden influence will become obvious. Suddenly the truth will connect every unanswered question. That moment will hit them harder than anyone expects. Because it will not merely change their understanding of the past. It will change their understanding of you. And when that happens, a new chapter begins. A chapter built on reality rather than assumptions. A chapter built on honesty rather than secrecy. A chapter built on clarity rather than confusion. But before that chapter can begin, one final confrontation with truth must take place. The conversation that has been avoided for years. The question that no one wanted asked. The answer that no one wanted revealed. That moment is approaching now. Closer than it has ever been. And when those words are finally spoken. When the last secret leaves the shadows. When the full truth stands uncovered before everyone involved. Nothing in this story will remain the same. Because the hidden truth about your family was only the beginning. The revelation waiting beyond it is even bigger. And the first person to be shocked by what comes next will not be you. It will be your soulmate.